4, 3. At this time, I'd like to call the Monday, February 10th Planning Commission meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is roll call. Pidd here, Price.
Here.
Longton,
Here.
Hema,
Here.
Duden, Charnell,
Here.
and Shovlin. That brings us to number 3, which is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Mr. Price
Second.
and a second and a third, actually.
I heard her first. I did.
Did ya?
Yeah, that would, yeah.
Well, she might have beat him.
I don't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to number 4, which is the approval of the minutes from the January 13th, 2014 Planning Commission meeting.
I move we approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Longton and a second by Mr. Price. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. These guys are not?
Nope.
All right. Then we'll move on to number 6, which is public hearings, and seeing none, we'll just move right to number 7, which is discussion items, land use planning discussion.
Keep you in the dark during this presentation. Steve and Rob are here tonight to just have an informal conversation with the planning commissioners with respect to a recent purchase agreement that they've signed to purchase what's commonly known as the former or the old Creamery building at 3rd and Water Street. And that's identified in the red rectangular box on the screen and the materials that I passed out to you. There's a vacant home along 3rd and Water on the west end of the site, and then of course moving east on Water is the old Creamery building itself. This property is identified in the staff information is currently zoned R3, which is a multi-family residential district. Property to the south across the street, a block south across the street, moves into a couple of blocks of R4 multifamily. And as the property, or excuse me, as the neighborhoods extend east towards the high school, we kind of go from an R3 area into an R2. So it's predominantly since 2006 zoned as multifamily residential development, at least in this particular neighborhood. On the other side of the river, where Raw Bistro is and the former Lawrence Meats facility, that area is of course all zoned residential business district. So we have some commercial business land use zoning currently north and west of this site across the river, and again primarily through this particular property south and east is a mixture of primarily multifamily R3, R4 zoning, and then some R2 zoning to the east of that. So I've been in conversation with Steve and Rob for quite some time as they've kind of looked at that property and have now entered into a purchase agreement to acquire it. And I would expect that as they move forward, we'll be seeing a specific formal request for probably some zoning changes in this area. But to kind of accommodate their schedule and the fact that we are in meeting tonight, I've invited them to come in and just kind of share with you at least their vision of the property, recognizing that at this point they are not, to my knowledge, they are not, and no one else has since that property has become available, has come to me with a proposal for some type of multifamily development under the current zoning. So we're probably going to be looking as we move forward with these folks or someone else in the future, we're probably going to be looking at some official request for some zoning changes in this area. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to these guys, and they can share with you kind of where they're at, where they're headed. And if you've got some questions, some comments, some suggestions from this point forward, this is the opportunity to do that. Rob? And I'll leave the lights off for now, just so we can.
Okay.
Thank you. So, as Dave said, I'm Rob Lawrence, Steve Auger. We're representing a group that wants to buy that as an investment property. Steve is the owner of Zephyr Stamping, and he does some machine work, primarily micro machining, small, very detailed, and he even brought some samples to show you, just to get you an idea. That's the type of business we want to put in there. Steve is going to be our cornerstone tenant in the building, but we're not going to be generating a bunch of truck traffic and stuff because the place doesn't have real great roads for that. So we acknowledge that. We're looking at him being a cornerstone tenant, and then some other artisan type business. At one time, there was even a cheese guy that was looking at that facility, and so we just want to go out and look for those but it's artisan type of businesses. Maybe even an artist or potter or, something along that line.
Yeah, we've had some discussions with a small wood shop that might want to go in that area. Another business similar to mine.
So it's been zoned residential for quite some time, but it's actually been used as industrial, light industrial for ever, I guess you'd say. There's been a renter in there for quite a while, and before that one, Ram was in there for some time, and precision tooling. And being from Lawrence Meats, I've drove by that building a time or two going home, back and forth from work, and I always thought it was a unique building, and we'd like to see something done to it. So that's our goal for in the big building. The house we've looked at a couple of times. Steve's been in there a couple times. It just doesn't look like there's anything there salvageable. I mean, the walls are stripped, and
yeah, walls are stripped, ceiling stripped,
so
insulation falling out over.
So our plan for that is to raise that and get it out of there, and get that lot cleaned up. Get the wood line to the east, get that a little cleaned up. There's a great big pile of bricks out back. Our goal would be to get that cleaned up. When Ted built the building, if you go through the alley, he left doorways to enter the multiple floors from the alley side. And so that's something else that we'll be asking for as we get a plan. If there aren't any easements in that alley, could it be vacated, and could we get the property so that we could make an access to the backside? One thing, when Ted built that building, there is no, I don't know if any have been inside. It's a weird building inside. In the old part, you can go from the first floor to the second floor, and then you got to go across the second floor, and the second floor is the whole hip roof. It's all open. So you got to go through that to get into the second floor of the square part in the back, and then back there's a stairway to go from the second floor to the third floor. And so inside it's really a mess, and we're going to have to come up with some kind of exterior stairway entrance to the different levels as we pull our plan together.
Yeah, and to meet the fire code.
Yep.
Things like that. So, if we get the building, we plan on making it look pretty nice. New roofing, clean up the lots. We haven't completely decided on if we're restuccoing the front part of the building. We're looking at a couple different options there, but there'll be a new face put on it. We're pretty excited that we think we can make it look like a pretty cool
Decent
building.
Yep. And so, like Dave said, we're just our purchase agreement is being submitted based on us getting it rezoned and getting the use from the city, because that's the only thing we can see that it's any good for. And if we can get you guys to go along with that, then we'll proceed with the plan. But basically tonight was just to come as long as you were meeting anyway and start the conversation and start having some questions before we actually have a public hearing, so that we don't have to deal with so many questions at once.
Yeah, everyone could think a little bit longer about it.
So is it-
What's the
you
approximate square footage of the building, of the main building?
The floor plan of all the levels shows approximately 14,000 square feet,
Total?
you know. Most of it's usable. There is some that's broke up a little bit. That would just,
There's basement in some of the old part, in some of the
Yeah.
actual front part, which is weird. It's, again,
just
it's a
couple
really
little-
weird.
Just a couple little basement nooks here and there under the front part.
So I don't know that that'll be usable. But, with the artisan type of business that we're looking for, we're not planning on there being any retail. We're planning on it all being manufacturing. But yet we want to be upfront with you and say that, that there may be a small retail component depending on what we can find for a landlord. Or
Right.
renter, excuse me. We are the landlord.
We don't see it as mainly a commercial front, though. Some guys like to have a little, if they got art prints or something hanging in there, they'd like to have a little storefront that maybe shows some of that.
Maybe explain a little bit about your business, Steve. I think that
Sure.
would be helpful too. since-
My business, I'm mainly a machine shop. I've evolved, well, first, I started in 2001. Been located at my residence. Have outgrown it a couple different times. And now we're looking to become a part of it. Mainly, I do a lot of work for medical applications. You can see the part size right here compared to the dime.
So that's micro stuff.
That's
Yeah,
something
you don't
small
need a
stuff.
lot of semis to haul the raw material in to make that.
No, I don't get much, I never have semi-traffic where I'm at. Here's another little cooler we made for cooling plasma and blood. Most of my work goes into medical research, cancer research. Here's kind of, let's see. Here's I'll move this around. These are current projects that I work on. These two are pictures of machines. They're the same machine. This is the newer look to it. This machine is now owned by Beckman Dickinson, a very large company. And they use it for taking micro amounts of fluid. Say you have strep, they can take a little bit of your fluid, not only tell you have strep, but exactly the DNA strain of the strep, so they can focus antibiotics exactly to that instead of the broadcast antibiotics that we all know are causing us all harm. Let's see which way is up and down here. This is the newest machine we're working on. You can't really see it. What they do here is they take a sample of blood, mix it with a different few batches of chemicals, bring it down through a filter, and they're able to filter the cancer blood cells out of the regular blood cells, and then pull the cancer blood cells out of the filter, work exactly with them in the research without having all the different types of cells in their way. It's a lot more work with like enzymes and stuff that I really don't understand.
So they're one-of-a-kind machines, is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, this machine right here now is into full production. They're building 14 of them a week. We expect that to go for about 2 years.
so you build the prototypes and
We did all the prototypes. Yep, this view right here is the prototype. The last machine we built for the, basically I had quite a bit to do with that machine. And then once it got bought out by the bigger company, my work is now limited to a few of the exterior parts, hinges and the handles.
what's that?
It's open just to like the hinges and the handles.
Sure.
Not all the inner workings. But now as we get into the prototype of the next one, we build all the inner workings for them. And that one now we're just starting to build 10 of them. And I never know where that's going to go. It kind of depends on the market out there. So things move fast in that industry.
So you're not talking like a big line of manufacturing here, you're talking about small line
Small.
production.
Yep. I have probably the smallest, well, there's always smaller, But in the world of machining, I own the smallest size machines to do the vertical machining on.
Sure.
You know, we don't make any parts that are bigger than about 12 inches by 16 inches would be the biggest we could make. So, and there's a little bit of, you know, I did bring you some stuff if you wanted to see. I don't know if you guys are interested in touchy-feelies or anything. Can I just come up?
Sure, yeah.
Dan, how are you?
Good. It's been a few years.
It's been a few years. This is small turn diameter. It's threaded. It's got a hole through it, little nails,
Yes,
so
yeah.
they can run it in. In this bag, you'll find over 100 little parts.
So you make these.
Yes. I've made all this stuff.
So you have lathes and
Lathes
small
and-
lathes,
Small lathes and small mills.
small mills.
And some of them out.
Yeah.
Now everyone gets nervous at the name, Zephyr Stampings. We do a little bit of stamping.
But most of it's milled out.
Yeah, the stamping business is very.
This is all, what kind of material?
That's aluminum with a black anodized finish on it.
You do the anodizing?
Nope, that's done up in Minneapolis.
So you don't have to worry about that kind of chemical process and stuff.
No, I really don't have any waste stream.
So you,
Some down there to look at.
Oh, yeah, we're checking it out.
oh,
This part here you can see is full of little tiny holes down the end.
Mm-hmm.
20 thousandths diameter holes. They go halfway
Right.
through that part. See them in there?
oh, sure. Yeah.
Down through there.
Wow.
So as our goal as the medical things need smaller and smaller tolerances and smaller parts.
These are made of what, plastic? These
Yep,
little?
that's the plastic. Here's a little filter pad for the blood filter I was telling you about.
That's pretty cool looking.
That's just the jets that the parts run through.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little product we make.
It's
that we're
almost
trying to
like a
get on the
printer.
market. This is actually, I call it Chinese finger for PVC well casings. These, we make them in lengths.
This is a heater. You
That's
put, you
actually
heater,
what-
you put electric coil in it? Is that what
No,
you do?
the
You heat it?
The filter goes in that area.
filter
and
goes in.
the different blood
Sure.
samples come through the filter and trench back out, and as they have different enzymes to it.
How many of those can you?
This product they plan on putting into PVC pipe. They have a quick way of attaching it is they put it down in the wells.
Sure.
It'll flex open, snap into the pipe, hold the pipe. If they have to evacuate the well, they can pull the pipe, put a tool down and take it apart.
Take
in
it apart.
sections. They have big plans for it. I don't know. Been on the table a long time.
So they give you the plans, you make the models, is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and we look for some production, you know. We like doing the onesie twosies and the intricate stuff like this. You'll notice there's a V on one side and a slot on the other.
Certainly one thing to think of these, but it's another thing to make them, isn't it? Engineers can think of them, but they can't make them.
That's my job. Figure out how we can make them at the best
Model maker.
possible price for the customer.
Cool.
And our reasoning for doing the show and tell is just to, you know, from a neighborhood standpoint, we want to show that, you know,
Yeah.
we're not talking about bringing something into the neighborhood that you'd mind having next door to your house. I mean, you're not going to have, you know, a lot of traffic, not have a lot of big machines.
I don't have that picture up right now, but it sits like this. And as they open the hood, it's a really expensive hinge.
Yeah.
But there is, you know, some normal noises associated with metal cutting and stuff. I believe 99% of the noises would be kept in the building. We don't want to be looking for tenants with big equipment.
So there's no anodizing and no smeltering or none of that.
Not at all.
It's all cold metals and,
Yeah. I've been working out of my residence for a long time.
yeah.
I own every bit of hazardous waste I've ever made still. And it hasn't amounted to like 30 gallons. And then basically it's my old cooler.
Sure.
I don't know what to do with it. So cook it down to get it back to the oil. And I just have it still, and
Yeah,
we'll go to environmental guys, to reclaim someday.
sure.
And I get enough of it. So that's kind of what I'm into, small machining. Gonna keep focusing in the medical industry. It seems where we fit. I have 6 different customers in that area.
Any employees?
Anything running through the
How many
alley for
employees right now? I
business?
have 1 full-time.
water
I
in
have,
it?
3 full-time and 2 part-time
No,
in the height of it all. But now it's
I think.
basically 1 full-time.
One full-time. Cool.
How much space in the 14,000 square foot area would you expect your business to occupy, do you think?
Eventually 5,000.
5? Okay.
And maybe right away.
Okay.
We haven't,
Yep.
I can exist in a couple different places in the building. But we haven't looked at that yet because
So the demand's been increasing every year for you? Pretty
Yes,
much,
sir.
yeah?
Yep.
Just pedaling as fast as you can?
Sometimes it's really hard to keep above water, other times you wish you were drowning,
It's a good problem.
It's one of them things. It comes and goes. And,
Yeah, cool.
My business has been that way we get into the new research, things are slowed down, kind of the onesie-twosies,
Yeah.
they get into the production. And eventually they phase out and we get into the next
Yep.
generations. As my customer base expands now, we hope they hit it a little bit different times to keep it on that. But I guess if I knew all the answers to that, I would have retired a long time ago.
Yeah, thank you.
I do, like I said, we don't make a lot of noise. Been in the neighborhood. We haven't had problems before. That's kind of what I do.
On the land use side for the commission, that there's been prior industrial use in the building.
Yep.
And if there was a current industrial user in the building, it would be grandfathered in as a non-conforming use. When the non-conforming use vacates the building, which I'm guessing has probably happened here, and it's vacant for more than a year, then the non-conforming status is legally lost. What I mentioned to Rob and Steve as we've had various conversations over the last couple of months is that's the non-conforming side. We're also in the process of the new zoning ordinance. And the R3 zone that's there today, even if we rezoned it to residential use, we would rezone it under the new ordinance that you've reviewed in the past to an R2 district, which is going to be our multifamily district. If it went from R3 and was going to stay as residential, it would go to R2. That would be the similar new ordinance, new district that we're working on. I think in their case, my suggestion is going to be if there's generally some acceptance with what Steve is saying in terms of his operation and his use being okay there, that's fine. We could look at some type of industrial zone to accommodate Steve. But in terms of the balance of the building or even the balance of the site, because when that house is removed, there's almost an acre of land that goes along with that existing house and the existing building. So there could be some potential expansion there. I think the trick on this is going to be if the industrial use that Steve's talking about is okay there in terms of what the Planning Commission might consider. The real question is going to be, well, what about the balance of the space in the building or on the site? Is an industrial zone straight up the best land use district that we should consider here, or should it be some type of commercial use, or should it be some type of planned unit development zoning? So I think the key issue for these guys, if they're going to go ahead, is what really seems to be the best zoning classification to regulate land use, both what they're proposing to do now as well as beyond what they might do just with Steve's business. And that's where it gets a little tricky because it's a pretty decent sized building, it's a pretty decent sized property, it's got some historic use, it's got some neighboring use, it's again one of those in-betweeners. And what we ended up doing across the river for Rob Bistro, which was Rob's former building, the old meat plant, is what we ended up doing there, because it was kind of similar, but it was in a residential business district zone. We gave Rob Bistro an interim use permit. So they were allowed to create their pet food business in the old meat plant under an interim use permit, which they're still under today. But we gave that to them for a 5-year term. We're probably, with the new zoning ordinance, probably gonna bring back to this group, when we do the whole citywide zoning, we're probably gonna come back to this group and talk probably under the new zoning district of maybe the C2 classification, which would then accommodate the Raw Bistro function both as an industrial light production operation as well as some commercial use. So I think that's probably what we'll do across the river for Raw Bistro, but it's kind of similar here, except it's on the other side of the river.
Where does the artisan potential retail fall into that?
Well, taking Steve's operation out of it, the new C2 district would fit best for the artisan and the commercial use. We also allow, though, in the new draft of the C2, we would allow light industrial use. So probably what Steve's talking about would probably fit within the proposed C2 district, as well as allow some other commercial developments there.
Sure.
So I mean, intuitively and from a feel perspective, that's probably the one that I would lean to most right now. But if there's a business that's under an industrial use, but it's maybe a little bit not the same as Steve's, and they've got X thousand square feet of additional space there, and someone would want to come in and do maybe a little bit heavier manufacturing, the C2 district isn't going to work. So I think we could fit his use and some commercial in the proposed C2 probably pretty cleanly, but that may or may not be what they want to pursue. So it's going to be one of those kind of in-betweeners, and that's why I thought tonight, out of convenience, your time and theirs, that we bring them in and at least start thinking about this, but they're going to have to come to you at some point and make a request for a zoning classification for certainly their project as they're talking about tonight, and/or trying to anticipate for the space beyond it.
And I don't know if the former tenants were there, whether you guys knew they were there or not, but actually there's been somebody doing machine work in there less than a year ago.
Yep.
And so, you know, if a guy wanted to do that, we could, you know, we could say that it's been going. But we're looking at the long term, we just as soon not do it that way, because then you're, you know, then you're always out of compliance. And I'd rather get it set up that if the city is okay with it being used for the purposes that we're talking about, to get it zoned properly for that, and it's fixed once and it's done.
When it warms up to, say, 20 or 25, maybe even 30.
Below?
It really is. I mean, I've not been in the building, but when the Arnesons put it up for sale, I've met with the original appraiser, I've looked at all the layouts, I've spoken with these guys, I've been on the site but not in the building. So I've got a good enough sense, even without going into the building, on what's there, and it is unique. I mean, there's a lot of space, but it's a unique building, and how we fit that in from a land use perspective is kind of our challenge.
What's
It's,
the
again, one of
difference?
those deals.
What's the difference between what you're the C2 that you're talking about versus the I1?
The I-1's not going to give you the commercial opportunities.
But it does allow, did I, and I maybe didn't read it right, but it does allow for some retail, but it's a percentage of the can't be over a percentage of the square
Yeah,
feet?
it's going to be like, let's take your plant out in the industrial
Yeah.
park. If you're going to retail some meat out there, that's incidental to the main
Yeah.
production, so
Right.
that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know. We've been approached about, you know, serving the trail a little bit there too.
Well, and that's not necessarily a bad idea.
Well,
You know, with that location,
Right.
you should really be working with Mr. Dablo. He could probably get you a nice mural for that south wall. What?
you know what? You know, it sounds funny, but I believe in that.
Well, you know, it's not that bad of an idea. It sure get a lot of views from
Right.
people on bikes and.
Right, and that's it, you know, like I said, I've drove by that building a million times, I bet, you know, going back and forth, back when we had the plant down there. And I've always been intrigued by it, and then after we got in and looked at it, you know, that it's a unique building. We'd like to research some of the history of it. I've asked a couple of old timers to try to figure out what the name of it was at one time, but I haven't gotten very far with that yet. My dad swears he knows what it was, but I can't find any record of them names anywhere.
Well, it was a creamery, but
It was a creamery,
creamery,
yeah.
yeah.
my dad worked there when he was a high school kid.
Yeah, and you know, our goal on the outside of it is to try to keep some of the heritage in it, if that's the right word.
What about the residential part then?
Yeah.
Well, that we're gonna plan on raising the building and getting it leveled, and then we have no immediate plan for that lot, other than to get that old house out of there.
Get it cleaned up for now.
Get
and-
it cleaned up for
Cleaned
there
up,
now.
leave
You
it
know,
green.
we're doing our planning and cost projections that we can get enough tenants in the building to make the space pay for itself.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff just laying around taking up space outside, isn't there? That's-
Yep, yeah, there's,
There we
you
go.
know, there's that great big pile in the back of bricks and dirt that were pulled across from the depot across the road sitting there, and there's, you know, there's some cleanup, and like I said, the other part of it is, the alley is kind of also, you know, important part to it, because the way Ted went and built the building, he's actually got a garage door hole in the building facing the north on all the levels. Well, from the view of this, that building is right up against the property line. We haven't got it surveyed yet, but, I mean, so you got those holes there, but you got no way to get into them.
gotta get
So,
out, yeah.
you know, we'll come back also when we get farther down the line and ask if that alley can be vacated so that we could use that,
We'd like to maybe
to
put some
try
kind
to,
of
you know,
lift.
like a freight elevator or something, so that you could go in and out of the.
But you're not
the
sure what
tenant.
space you got back there yet, so you might have more than you know yet.
We don't
No,
know-
we
yeah,
know we don't
know
have
yet.
any.
You think it's
I
right up
mean,
on the line?
Because when you drive through the alley, you can rub your hand against the building.
Okay. But
So-
is that where the property line is?
Well, we don't know that.
That might be on the other side of the,
Well, unless the alley isn't where the alley, I mean,
yeah,
unless the perceived alley isn't
Exactly.
really the alley.
exactly.
I believe,
Certainly something to consider.
But the terrain, if it's gotta go any farther north, it's gonna get tough
It
driving.
gets tough that way, yeah. Okay.
I
So-
would believe that we would have the survey in the next 3 weeks, though, I think is.
Yeah, that'll answer a lot of questions for you.
It would.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, we could, you know, the alley's there, and we can get fork trucks and go up to the holes and stuff.
I could think that you could fill that place up pretty fast with, you know, people look at, if you've got enough electrical and utilities in the place to,
It's got good electrical
It's
and
got
it's.
1,000 amps of 3-phase.
yeah.
going in.
There's always somebody that wants to get out on, like, you know, get out of their house and go to the next level, you know?
Well, we've made just a couple little inquiries out, and actually got a lot of good response already.
Yeah.
There's a lot of excitement going on in town with Art.org and these guys too, you know. And, you know, my business, yes, I'm a machine shop, but I kinda like to think of myself as not your general machine shop.
No, I don't think you are a general.
You know, it's kind of real specialized, and as, you know, our world gets smaller and smaller. For the amount of materials I've moved through, I can exist on the second or third floor because I just, you know, most of the days I can carry my raw materials in my hand. There is some big, you know, I'm not saying I'm exempt from having a truck every now and then. It just doesn't happen. And right now, I don't have a place for it, so I do rent dock space in town to unload that stuff.
As long as there's no smoke or smell coming out of the building, well, you're probably gonna be, the noise you're gonna have a little bit, but you got plenty of room there.
Yeah, we made a little part for a local chair manufacturer.
Sure.
Without saying any names, they built for Subway stores all over the world. We've been supplying them parts for 12 years.
Okay, so what, how do we move forward and decide whether it's C or 2 or I1? Or
Just
is
the
that
growth
our
of the
decision or
spies on the
your guys'
No,
decision?
you'll make the application, but we'll talk about the specifics, and maybe what we could do in a case like this is maybe we just broaden the application to include a consideration of multiple zoning. And we notify, because we've got to notify everybody within a block of the public hearing, and we can keep it as broad and then move it down from there. You guys can think about this, but like I say, it's a matter of beyond Steve's use right now.
Right, what the other tenant, and that's what we, you know,
So would we look to zone all the property in as, let's say, the C3? Or would we just look at the building and the small empty lot to be the C3 and leave that open for future?
You could leave,
residential?
because it's multiple parcels, you could choose to only consideration rezoning of part of it, and in this case, obviously, at least the building and access to the building.
I don't ever foresee expanding that building.
Okay.
It's kind of pretty much locked the way it is, you know?
Yep.
As an incubator, you know, if the businesses outgrow it, there's other buildings in town
Sure.
for the businesses to go to at that point.
okay, so you guys got any other questions for us?
Won't keep you no longer.
Cool. Looks like fun.
Is there something we could do like interim, like the bistro place was, for a year or two and see what the tenants come up with the intention of going to the C2 or something similar to that,
They,
so that they can move ahead and have some assurance of
we
kind
could
of what we're
do,
looking at?
we could do, if someone can provide me with some evidence, probably Arneson's, that there's been manufacturing industrial use in that building within the last year, then we do what David's suggesting and say we work out something just so we get Steve going here, under the non-conforming clause, and buy some time here to figure out, you guys and us, what maybe is a preferred land use there. We could do that. So all I would need is,
Okay.
I don't know if I'd like to drag that out too long, just it's something unknown.
Well, that gives you a little bit of time to kind of, what your tenants would be, so that then
Well-
they can suit the zoning
Doesn't,
boards.
it doesn't stop us from doing what we're planning on doing, and basically what that does is if we find more commercial type tenants looking for space, it could go zone commercial, and we find more industrial type tenants looking for space, it'd be zone industrial. Basically what you're saying, right?
Yep.
Would it ever get to the point, says we don't like you gotta leave? We
not,
don't like who you
no,
brought in?
not your use, because it's not about you, it's about the use.
Right.
Okay,
So,
so even if, as long as we bring in
long as
other
we stay
tenants that are
active.
doing the same,
Or like the artisan type stuff.
Yeah.
or-
right, right.
And that just gives you a little bit more of a chance to make sure the clients that you have coming in fit without having to be dead on right away. It gives you a little flexibility through,
if you wanted to put a bike shop and an ice cream shop in there, well, then you gotta come back and we gotta do something, but,
'Cause there's been talk about that, I mean, a lot of people say it's a good place for it. It's not my business.
Right.
No.
so we get you where you're going, if I can get something from the existing owner that talks about the most recent tenant or tenants being industrial, then we do non-conforming, get you going.
Right.
If you want to make an official request, an application, these folks come in once a month, 3 or 4 weeks before they meet, you let me know, we put a public hearing together and come in and talk
We'll
specifics.
probably be doing that, just to, keep it all going.
It would help to have the survey too, I mean, just so we can kind of look, because then we deal with the alley and the other issues out there too, so.
Right, it's-
Right, because I mean, the alley is actually totally separate from the rezoning. I mean, you could vacate the alley without changing the rezoning, right?
Yep, yep,
Okay, hey,
Yep.
thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
thanks.
And that brings us to the other discussion item, Highway 52 at County Road 86 and County Road 24.
Let's do 86 first, and you get to come off the podium and venture over here.
Show and tell.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you. Two MnDOT discussions for information, more than anything else tonight. Not anything officially has to be done in either case by the planning commission, but both issues, some of which you've read about, some of which you may be aware of. Unusual circumstance with County 86 and Highway 52 up in the north, and the unusual circumstance is that MnDOT and Dakota County are on a fast track. That never happens, but it's happening this time. So they had an open house last week, 2 weeks ago. It was pretty well attended. They were good enough to leave these three alternatives, which I'm going to go through with the commission here in a minute. Leave these three with me to present to you. The EDA is going to look at them on Wednesday morning. We'll probably come back and have some conversation with the council about these too. But Dakota County is going to select their preferred alternative by the end of February, they say. Now, the important thing about the fast track is that they've got money to make an improvement out at County 86 and 52 and build it in 2015. So this is moving forward. They're going to do something, they being Dakota County and then three alternatives. The first one here, alternative A, is the least costly of the three alternatives. And basically what's happening is you're coming north on 52 to get off at 86. There's going to be a right turn lane here up to 86. If you're going west, you're going here. If you're going back to town, you're going there. If you're coming on to 52, you're coming from town, you're coming up here, turn here, and having an acceleration lane, which I'll have to do. Okay? So pretty simple product design, same thing on the west side. This is a $7-odd million alternative. All three have bridges. Alternative B, little modification / improvement from alternative A. Here, where again you're coming off of 52 from the south, you're coming up here, going west, east, you're coming from town, again on to 52, you're coming here. With a shorter acceleration lane, but being able to get greater speed with a shorter period of time here. So this one, a little bit more expensive. Dakota County's thinking maybe 10% or so more expensive to build this option compared to the option A. The third option is the one that you're probably most familiar with, which is the traditional pole interchange. Again, coming off on 52 here, going to town, going west, and going on to 52, coming off here with a traditional access. This one probably $2 to $3 million more than alternative A, so obviously more, excuse me, more money here for this option. The conversations that I've had with Dakota County and the Highway Department over the last year or so has been, one, I'm surprised and excited that they're even going to do something. But number two is I'm really surprised that they're doing something this quickly. Number three is, from my vantage point, this would be the preferred option that I would like to see constructed, because what's going on with the Economic Development Authority starting officially Wednesday, which probably will come back to the Planning Commission and continues to the EDA, is conversations about growth in the industrial park. The main reason why the EDA in the last 2 years is going to pick up their ball and going home on the industrial park is, number one, is sold and installed land, which is good. But number two is, well, if you had chances to buy extra land, we haven't done it primarily because we didn't think that this was coming. Without an access out there, we're kind of, we've done what we can do. So this is a game changer for us, for the EDA. So the EDA starting Wednesday is taking a much closer look at growth opportunities north and west of the industrial park coming into Randolph Township, Hampton Township, both in Dakota County. So moving out of Goodhue County into Randolph and Hampton Township in terms of growth going north and west. We've had no conversations with either township. They're not proposing anything officially. But again, with this thing coming back our way now, the EDA has all of a sudden got more excited about looking at those. So I'm guessing what I'm going to hear from the EDA on Wednesday is, let's recommend this.
You know, I do have to say that all of those, that's a personal tradition. They really did get creative. I got to give them that.
Depends on what kind of traffic, if you're gonna deal with more industrial traffic out of that, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. But even at that, you know, they didn't propose it, you know,
Somebody's gonna be happy with this.
they would.
Like I told Minda, I mean, very honestly, any one of the three is a vast improvement what's there. It's a vast improvement to the J intersection, which is what they were going to do. So even if they built alternative A, we're way further ahead than we were in the last two plans that I've seen.
This one too, you know, the way that this is the only one that's got a road covered back here.
Yep.
That does actually go over homes that here. So it does kind of give one opportunity for the more, you know, right off the highway kind of business.
I think those guys, you know, yeah, towards, those be the much good. Not everything is correct. It's nice.
So we'll see, and I think we're going to apparently see sooner than later, which is really a surprise again.
They bent up a lot of sheet metal out there last summer. When summer finally hit, I mean, there was enough accidents out there. And then they pile up 4 or 5 cars up there right in the center of 52. And if you're semi going north, or like me with my dump truck and backhoe and stuff, and I get stuck going out there every once in a while. You get out, I mean, you can sit there for 45 minutes next Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting because I went to the open house that they had for the J turn, which was, if you wanted, this would be closed off, and you come up here and then go back, or vice versa. I was at the open house for that, and people were just irate. There wasn't a person there that said, you know what, I love this idea. Fast forward to the open house here, with more people there, and I was only there for like 45 minutes, and people were just really confused.
I don't think any of them, I don't think you can make a bad decision.
No, exactly. No, that's just part of it.
What are their other ones though? I mean, if they're-
Just three.
Just those. If it is like a budgetary thing, it's like one of those that almost ends up with.
I think this is the compromise one right here, I think. I don't think this is gonna happen. I think if I had to pick one that's probably most likely, it's probably this one.
This isn't a whole lot different than what they did up on East or up on 46.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what they're looking at doing kind of on County 9, kind of.
Because they took out 46.
These are one more good for someone.
Well, 46, when you come up out of Coates there and come around, you'd have to cross over here, you know, because the Coates is over here, you come up and then you go back down and around and under.
This is pretty good agricultural property.
Yeah, this does actually chew up a little less.
All that too.
I suppose this is.
You bought this whole kernel farm or continues.
That's it. Oh, 11,000.
It's that's like 4 times
No, no.
You can't grow, at $20 a bushel, you can't grow enough corn on it, you have to make money.
No, this
Somebody's
is-
sitting on it for something
This is
else.
awfully sandy soil.
Farm,
This
real
is
hard.
this is the borderline needing irrigation. You know, you head out toward Hastings, and there's a lot of irrigation once you head down there. So I'm thinking at some point this was like big.
That's it. I think we have some farm. Really not all the way up.
Well,
For 20 years, that's all they grew on here.
you know,
Right,
actually,
all the mills.
a couple of years ago, ethanol was making a really big push. They had one guy come in and said, yeah, told me that, you know, it went to $12 or a bushel or something.
No, but early when they first farmed all this, and this was an acre farm, his farm. Charles has 3 or 4 farms, they're in this district, and, yeah, they initially farmed this wheat, because didn't see much corn. But they did that for 20 years, and they decided it was starting it out. Gotta switch out. Yeah, if you ever see those pictures, you know, like, those teams in a row going down, you know, that's what they had up here. They had barns, houses for firemen. Those were, they were basically,
Back in the day, that was.
yeah. When the English were here.
How many acres did you?
Huge. I mean, it went all the way over, you know, all this stuff was, there's some swamp here. I think it's great. I think it's all great.
Well, that's coming, and I guess from the planning commission's perspective, again, because all that is out in the township. This will have obviously some land use implications to this community, whether we annex or not, this is going to affect us. So that's for information. Let's go over.
Our signs are up here someplace, isn't it?
A little bit further Here's the water run right here.
What happens once we cross it over, nobody's ever come up with a, once we cross over to Dakota County, nobody's come up with a definite answer, at least not said anything to me. What happens about us having to belong to the Met Council and then we have another boss?
We'll request legislative exemption. Northfield's got it, and Craig's got it, other communities on.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's, yeah, if we go into Dakota County and make it part of this city, we will try to exempt ourselves from Met Council jurisdiction.
I know that'll throw a lot of,
Yes.
it makes a lot of problems.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna do.
All right. The other MnDOT issue, just to bring you up to speed. North end, here's McDonald's, CJ's. Here's the existing signals up here. Okay. Property owners have gotten together and made a request of the Highway Department, the City of Cannon Falls, and others to support the retention and continued opening of access, at least coming south on 52 going west, going north on 52 going east, not necessarily keeping
Close that off.
but to keep the access open. What's happened is the Highway Department's got the Ombudsman, which is kind of a conflict management organization. They have some conflict. So they came in and met with a number of the property owners. They met with us. They met with District 6. They got some people in St. Paul out of MnDOT. And they basically came back with what I included in the Planning Commission packet, which was kind of a proposed outline of what to do next. And the what to do next will come back to the City Council probably on the 18th of February, which is the Highway Department, to us, has said City of Cannon Falls and the Highway Department should cost share in the hiring of an independent transportation engineer to come in and study the opportunities for keeping the access in, access out, east and west sides open, to see whether or not there's a design that can be built and not have a negative impact on safety. I think it's a big pill to swallow. But that said, is Short Elliott Hendrickson, who is our city engineer, their transportation engineer, came in and gave us a proposal 2 weeks ago, which is now in the process of being reviewed by the Highway Department. That will get a response back from the Highway Department tomorrow. If they say the scope of the work is good and they're willing to spend $4,500, then we'll go back to the City Council and ask them if they're willing to spend $4,500 to pay $9,000 to the transportation engineer to do some preliminary evaluation as to the opportunities to keep the access points open, as well as to begin to assess any kind of safety impacts if they were to stay open. The feeling of the Public Works Commission of the City Council, who did review this proposal, was probably worth spending from the city's perspective $4,500 along with MnDOT's $4,500 to just see if there's some opportunities here to keep these access points open. Kind of again respond to the interest of the property owners. Basically said if these access is closed, we're out of business. So the Public Works Commission, Jay, will recommend to the council, provided MnDOT agrees to this supposedly by tomorrow, will recommend to the city council that the study be done. The study will be done expeditiously, probably within 30 days. My sense is the results will come back. MnDOT will say, there's some safety impacts with whatever this solution is. And if there is, MnDOT will have the choice of saying, no can do, study it more, do whatever you're going to do, but we're not going to participate. We're not going to permit something like that. Or they may say, gee, there's an idea that we didn't analyze originally, or at least over the last 11 years. There's an idea there that we think maybe we could work with that won't negatively impact safety. And if you want to build it, we may even permit it after you do a lot more specific engineering and design work and evaluation. And oh yeah, if you do want to build it, guess who's going to pay for it? You are, the city of Cannon Falls. So there's a lot of uncertainty with this thing, and I'm not speaking out of school. I've told MnDOT in every meeting since Aaron got me involved with this in the last month or so. I don't think there's much chance that MnDOT's going to allow something like this to occur. I really don't think that they will. I'm not interested personally in spending a lot of time, effort, and money. They have MnDOT say no. They have already said no. They told the city council no the night they were here. But I think we do, from a community's perspective, I think we kind of owe it to that, to the property owners to kind of look at this and see. And maybe I'm wrong. But I think to assume that there's a solution out there that MnDOT's going to A, permit, is a big stretch. And B, if there is a solution out there that they're going to permit, I think it's going to cost a whole lot of money. Then the question is the city of Cannon Falls really interested in spending that money? And I wonder about that, because I don't think it's going to be inexpensive. Because just as you saw over here, those access. Up on the end, yeah. Now we just looked at here, you got $7 million for the base plan, maybe 9 or 10 for the full interchange. You know, those options weren't looked at 11 years ago, or in the last 11 years when that started, what they're now building. Those options were looked at really. And what they've also told us, which I don't disagree with, is they're not going to make, even if we can find a solution, they're not going to make that construction part of this project. This thing is so regulated federally and state, by the federal government and state, that you can't just kind of simply add in a change now and forget about environmental review, forget about social justice, forget about all that stuff that they had to study the last 11 years to get this thing funded. You literally have to start over. And so I agree with MnDOT that if there's going to be something here that's different from what's shown right here, we're going to have to start over. It's going to have to be its own project. It can't be just added on to Interchange's contract and built. Property owners don't want to hear that, but I'm not going to defend MnDOT often, but I will in this case. I agree with them. You don't come into a federally funded, state-funded highway project and then just go and change it. It don't work that way. So if there's a solution that MnDOT will permit, then we'd have to know what it's going to cost, because MnDOT's pretty much said, you guys are paying for it, you can do this is your deal, not ours. And the only way we could change that is to go back through our legislators and have them pursue some type of funding to the state bill, whatever this solution may be.
There's
I'm not sure.
no possible way that the current things that are already hired and released
There's not enough of them. You gotta have the acceleration.
Here's their problem, man. Just like say, these plants there, you got 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 1,500 feet to get these accelerations. And what MnDOT's going to say, they've already said,
None of those really increase. You go up and down 52, when we switched from 65 to 65, I didn't see them go grow another 20 feet of that. You know, I'm just saying, all those spots I didn't see another 20 feet of asphalt, but that's probably what it is.
Down at Hager's, the place where they added in enough room down at Hager's.
Well, they got so many semis.
MnDOT did respond to this ombudsman thing, to the concerns that the general public and the property owners expressed, as well as others. And said, well, gee, you allowed something in Zimbrota, you allowed something in Hampton. And they did defend that, and I think rightfully so. It wasn't tough for them to do. We can all sit here as non-transportation engineers and say, what's the difference? That's safe, just do it. Well, it's not how it works. And the traffic counts are different, the visibilities are different, the topography is different. There's just so many
They
things.
probably got a certain amount of distance that they usually put with a certain type of highway or freeway between each of those.
To me, it makes sense though, common sense would say that you make this whole thing, you get off here, you make a loop, you make it where you can get back on, to make all this where you can survive. Just common sense says that. So that means that the highway department is not gonna touch it with a 1,000,000-foot pole. And the same thing here, you make, to make everything flow and work right, common sense says that you have an on and off down there. One going north and one coming south. You don't need a deceleration to get from here and back in, because you just get off up here. If a guy had the acceleration to get up and get going, a lot of people that go out towards Pagels and come in, they go this way, they don't go through town to go, even to go north.
I asked the question of the, like I said, we had several MnDOT folks here when they brought this news to us. And I asked them very directly, I said, how much safety are you willing to give up here? None? How much? And I think I said 0, and they said no, none. I don't know what the difference between 0 and none or none and 0 are, but what they're going to say is, you know, you're coming onto the highway here, and you're gearing up to get to be 65 miles an hour, and you're going to impact safety by, if you leave this here, you even have a long 50.
Well, you don't want a
precedent.
deceleration there,
Yeah.
but to go back north on that side, where if you get off here and you come up and then you can get back on, if you want to go to McDonald's, because people aren't going to get off here, come down, go to McDonald's, and then chase back and then go back down there. They just won't stop. And that hurts Cannon Falls as Cannon Falls. It hurts our business, our taxes.
That's why when, you know, talking to Country Kitchen and others, this wasn't about economic development. Never was. 11 years ago, this was not about economic. It's not about economic development today. It's about getting traffic through Cannon Falls as quickly as it can be accommodated and as safely as it can be. And sorry, you're not picking on Country Kitchen. I can take the council. This is not anything to do with economic development. And there's going to be a negative impact. We're going to lose some. We're going to change some. We're going to get some new. But over the course of time, only time will tell, was it a net gain or a net loss for Cannon Falls? And more importantly, and this is the point that we've tried to make for MnDOT for 1,000 years unsuccessfully, the state of Minnesota is the one, go back to Country Kitchen, they're the one taking the money. It ain't Cannon Falls.
And they give us a little bit back.
And they need, and what
Right
they,
now, not.
what they need to do with all these projects, it's not unique to Cannon Falls, is they need to make an economic judgment. They don't do that. The bureaucracy of MnDOT says all we do is build roads. We don't really care about economic development. The reality is, again, I don't want to pick on them, but we will.
Well, you got a Mexican restaurant, they get a lot of traffic coming off.
Let's pick on them. That real estate closes down because of the access. We're going to lose X number of jobs, and Lonzie's going to own a piece of real estate that he can't sell, and maybe he'll keep his taxes paid, maybe he won't, maybe he'll just let it go, and someone will come in and buy it on the cheap and have something that's not accessible. How many years is that going to take? Meantime, we've lost employment, property value's gone down considerably, and a decent place to eat in the state of Minnesota lost the money. It wasn't us. But that's not only that does these projects. They should. They should. But they're not. Now the other thing that we're at least working on, which I think is kind of a little bit of a concession goal, is we're able to impress upon them that irrespective of the transportation planning and all that stuff, and engineering, work with us on the signage. Work with us on the signage both financially and from a regulatory perspective. Because what I don't want to have to do here with my sign administrator hat on is have that Casey's up there now, and you've seen their highway sign is now up. I could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 of those things out here on both sides. They're expensive. Property owners would have to pay for it. We've got to deal with it, and it's not efficient signage. need to do here is come up with signage, which hopefully is paid for in whole or in part by the highway department, not the little blue signs that we're all used to. We gotta come up with something here that legitimately advertises, in my view, effectively and cost effectively for these businesses, not just one, but many of them, so the passing public here has a legitimate chance to figure out how they're gonna get to McDonald's, how they're gonna get to Country Kitchen, how they're gonna get here, and so the highway department did say we're willing to work with you.
That's right.
Wait,
Some process.
two signs, changeable copy.
Well, I think we talked
They
earlier
each
about.
get, how much is it?
Yeah.
Because, you know, by the time they get past any of the
Well, I know what you're saying, I have to travel out of the area. You get off on the signs of how this is super deal with it. Here's where you go to the station.
Or they don't tell you it's 5 miles
Some
off
of
the
them
road.
do.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Some of them do, but none of them tell you how many miles off the main road.
Right.
Right. So I mean,
But even the direction is different.
Sometimes you'll see it, sometimes you don't.
so we're at least in conversation with the highway department about that. Where it goes, I'm not sure, but exactly. I'm trying to get some concession from the highway department here because again, I don't think at the end of the day, we're gonna figure this out or they're gonna allow us to do something that meets the needs of the property.
I think they ought to have an acceleration lane going north and a deceleration coming south. There's plenty of room to make the north one work.
For the traffic coming here, throw one up back here.
And we kind of laughed earlier about our Cannon Falls sign that's almost in the city limits of St. Paul.
Yeah, well, you know, did you see?
That's not the sign I'm thinking about, but I think, you know, you can do something with reasonable size and have reasonable scope.
Yeah, just to get
Some
legitimate
directions for the public, so we can get them right enough.
That way you're making a loop. That's all you need to do.
So that's the other MnDOT issue that's kind of evolving, and Jay's gonna see it probably next Tuesday as the next step, and where that goes, we'll kind of see, but
Is that past?
that's
Oh, it is.
well.
So this is.
Well, they picked a nice expensive spot to put that thing in too,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of idiot engineered that? You got down behind Modette's here, you got this big frickin' hole here. What in the heck did that guy do come out
And then,
and look at the job site or
and
anything?
then to put
before he-
salt in the wounds, they made the hardship acquisition from CJ on that piece of property.
Yeah. It's
Years
just,
ago. And now they're not gonna do it. So, yeah, this basically what MnDOT has said was originally 2019, now it's when development demand necessitates a passable thing.
yeah, I think just put, you could almost solve the problem and not need it, because once everybody got used to the flow of the citizens around Cannon Falls, got used to the flow with what we're putting in for the infrastructure on the west side over there. If you had an acceleration and a deceleration lane at that point, you got plenty of room to get out and get across and get going. And that way you're far enough out in front of this.
And that's the thing, I mean, the lay of the land over here, obviously. we've got
That
some-
one it's tough on
We got
that
some
side.
problems over here. We also have some challenges over here when we talk about lineal distance to get acceleration, deceleration lanes built because of our topographic and our water flows, et cetera. But we can't come back this way because of this. So we're
Yeah,
forced.
you don't want to get too close.
Yeah, we're forced to go this way, which is complicated than up here. So I will see. Well,
The
with
lights are off. You can't buy gas there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing.
Rumor.
I've heard around town that they quick trip on most of them kind of what last
I haven't heard that directly, but it would shock me.
and at McDonald's is gonna find out, figure out when after they've done it, how many years they're gonna put it up in the corner.
Oh, it would shock me to see them through that way.
The guy that owns the McDonald's there, he bought the one up in Rosemont up there, and he completely redid that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
brand new, updated, really nice compared to what it used to be.
This is
And that's a portable building that they're in there anyway, because they put it in with the idea that it was eventually gonna have to come out. It's a split in half building. Basically, traded house.
This is one of their.
Our,
That's what it
our
is.
double wide McDonald's.
Yeah, that's what it is. When they put it in there, that's how they brought it in.
Well, that's how they build all their stores now, isn't it, in big section?
It doesn't take them long to put them up, I don't know.
It's like that, I don't know, that was one of the kids section. And I was like,
Stuck that one up by.
You know, I thought I had seen that, and I had to take a double take, because it's right down by our.
Yeah, it was like Pizza Hut was there one week, and last week Taco Bell was there.
I didn't stop, but I looked.
I think you've been on somewhere here go. Jesus, big chunk.
Yeah. Big cement slabs, really.
So that's that one. Now you're in the know. We'll see what happens.
I think once
Richard
the public
brings
kind of
money
gets
in,
used to
maybe
what's
they'll
going
start
on the
talking
west
about
side.
it.
Southwood was telling me that I told them as well, they're just acquired. Acquired, so I they'll end up putting something up here every time.
That's the thing, is they got
Rid of the
ability to do that.
competition.
so.
Well, it's, you know, that in itself isn't necessarily all bad. I've been here like years. Cannonball's been there for as long as I can. But that doesn't
I used
mean
to
that.
work there in eighth,
So did
ninth,
I.
and 10th grade.
Yeah. I washed dishes for a while. It was a pump jack. But
I actually
You know-
cleared the place out one time. They told me to go clean out the drain, so I
52.
put bleach and, what else? Bleach and something else they had me dumping down there, and it filled the whole, I break up all the meat scraps and all the garbage and stuff. And it just filled the place up with smoke like you wouldn't believe. It never come down out of its office.
Was that your last day?
No, I was there for 2 more years after that. That was close to one of my first days.
It was just doing.
Yeah, I just did what I was told.
well, but
Drain cleaner, that's what. Put drain cleaner down there, and then they said, oh, get that, it really smells. Dump some bleach down there, so I dumped about 4 or 5 gallons of bleach down there. It just started boiling. You wouldn't believe. It cleaned the whole place out. I mean, it was a green smoke and it burned.
Oh my God.
It was coming out the floor trains over in where there was a shop there, and they did tires and stuff, because on Sundays I work over there and change tires.
yeah, they used to do a lot more work in that job. And then it went to what?
When I was there, they had a full-time mechanic all the time over there.
Yeah, the old guy with the beard. Yeah. I remember he was there when I was there.
Alrighty, well, there you go.
But, you know, that might not be the best spot for a truck stop.
Yeah.
Well,
Good thing.
just saying.
It's not there anymore.
Might not be a first thing, real first thing.
It's like the turkey place up there, right? You had that on.
Yeah, yeah, to go to his store, he's probably the one getting the worst of the whole thing. Yeah, there was just some way to do the deceleration rate. Who says that it has to be right on 24? If you block this part of 24 off here and have your deceleration start about here where it can, and you bring it off back here, and then you come back and around.
Yeah, what
Because then
about
you
their
could just get
fancy
off
book
onto the
ideas?
service road and stuff.
A lot easier to do with MinDOT's corner.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
We can condemn too.
Well, I
but
think
it's
it-
a little bit different.
I think a
set
lot of the red
circumstances.
tape.
Give me a D8 out there, we'd clean her up,
Yeah.
push stuff back, and get her graded in short order.
So what's the power pole?
They're back over.
Are they moving the existing line that runs there that they were gonna share?
I don't know what they're doing with that. I haven't,
Because at one of the meetings I went to, they were talking about that they were gonna share that existing easement from where the transformer station was. They were gonna come across there and then share that easement all the way down with both the new line and the old line. I think that was the second meeting that they had here, they were talking about that.
Well, we've had very little contact with CapEx.
They're really giving it heck up there, Hampton. Every day there's more stuff hanging out there.
Well, I saw, I took two, a few times, my son did mom was over in Chaska, so Friday, and I pick him up. When I pick him up, he's pretty well done with stoplights too, right? I guess the back road, so we'll come down and catch E6 and 56. Just to get out of the stoplights, the traffic, you know, but, we came across on two then, and we were one of the cars that had to stop on our street lights, things like that, or not lights, but wires. It's quite the process when they go stringing all that wire. Should have seen all those spools out there. I mean, I couldn't believe the number of spools sitting in that one spot. Just think about how many feet that's gotta be. It's a lot. Oh, up on Hampton?
Yeah.
The first thing that went up was that chain link fence.
One of them,
No,
Yeah.
that is the first thing. You know, I'm not saying they didn't flatten it out before they put the fence in, but after it was flat, the fence was the first thing that went up. It was probably
When they
a
put it
good
in
idea.
footing, yeah.
I've seen some of those. Drive by them. They got a couple now right next to the highway.
I think they're making all those down there in Red Wing or just across the,
Thompson.
yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, up there, the ones I saw up here, they weren't using helicopters.
Yeah, they had them roped off up in Hampton where they were pulling them through.
I saw them a couple times on 94, Alec, yeah, stringing them, they're interesting. A lot of clockers in there.
Yeah, well, and that,
Maybe
but
more than miles
that's,
ahead.
that's dead wire. There are guys that actually work on that stuff while it's live from the helicopter.
That takes guts. Or stupidity.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I suppose when you're up that high, when you're grounded.
Yeah, but they're little, looks like little leg beaters.
Yeah, there's just little, they got the little round dome and looks like, what was that show back when we were little kids?
Magnum
Jetsons.
PI.
Jetsons.
Jetsons, yeah, it almost looks like a Jetson.
All right, well, we'll see where that ends up.
I suppose.
We don't have much say-so on what they're gonna do anyway, in reality.
You're exactly right.
Probably not on either one.
What, did you see somebody,
Yeah, something completely different.
Jay, did you see somebody took out the old railroad crossing?
Yeah.
I was coming
What the heck
home.
happened there?
This guy
How
plowed
can
into
you
it.
miss
Somebody
that?
plowed into it. I mean, took
Where
it
is
out.
that
It was
at?
laying in the ground when tow
Right up-
truck was coming to pick
right
up
up
the
here?
car.
Yeah, north
Yeah.
of town,
Yeah.
the inside
The one in the
crossing
median,
bar.
right, yeah, the one in the median's gone.
What were you looking at there? I hope that text was good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Right.
I suppose that's all the discussion items. And that brings us to number 8, which is Planning Commission member comments. Hearing none, we'll move on to number 9, which is adjourn.
Second.
I've got a motion by Mr. Price and a second by Ms. Charnel. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.